Back to Benghazi and the investigation as the search for justice continues. A key suspect right now is in federal custody. Ahmed Abu Khatallah, as we told you, pled not guilty in U.S. District Court in Washington just about an hour and a half ago for his alleged role in the 2012 attack that killed our ambassador, Chris Stevens, and 3 other Americans. So what is next for Khatallah now that he is a member or part of the U.S. justice system? Joining us to talk about that, criminal defense attorney and former JAG attorney, Philip Holloway. Philip, I want to start with this, and we back up a little bit here because there's been a lot of discussion about this. Was flying him off the Navy ship this morning the right move, or should they have kept him at sea, kept questioning him, or taken that ship down to Gitmo and let him be there for a little while?
Well, I think that the answer to that question ultimately is going to have to be decided by history. The Obama administration has made it perfectly clear that they intend to put no one else in Gitmo. In fact, the trend has been that everybody is trying to be cycled out of Gitmo. I can tell you this, that going forward, he's going to be treated just like any other criminal justice defendant moving through the criminal justice process, and the courts are going to have to decide what due process looks like for people like him when they're not American citizens, when they're captured overseas on foreign soil, they're interrogated by military and civilian authorities and sort of slowly floated to the United States to appear before a magistrate, which typically is supposed to be done fairly quickly.
I want to get back to this issue of him being floated over here. Jennifer Griffin did some great reporting, and she was talking earlier about how they really said that on the USS New York, as he was coming over, he was giving them a history lesson. He was very cooperative. He was talking about it. Can you give us a sense, for those of us who have not been on a Navy ship, you've been on a lot of them, give us a sense of kind of conditions he was being held under, the kind of idea? Was he in a jail cell? Is he locked in a stateroom? What happens on those ships?
He's probably held in something like a brig, which is really a barren cell used for any other person who might be in custody in the military. It could be a sailor, for example, who is charged with some criminal offense under the UCMJ. I can tell you they're not very pleasant. They're not very nice conditions. I don't know. I'm sure he wasn't mistreated or anything like that, but he certainly did not enjoy the last 2 weeks at sea. I can promise you that.
All right, Phil, give me a sense looking forward here in terms of the federal court proceeding. It seems as though bail is unlikely, but what does it tell you about the fact that we just saw the one charge here today and not a much longer-ranging indictment read out in federal court? It seems like the federal prosecutor is playing his cards very close when there's a lot on the table.
Absolutely right. And the federal prosecutor has the option at their discretion to increase or decrease these charges using the federal grand jury at pretty much any point in time within the statute of limitations. He's potentially facing murder charges, and I really think that's the way this is going because, you know, you did have the deaths of several Americans out there, and they each carry possibly life sentences. So I think that what we're seeing right now is just the very tip of the iceberg.
Can we read anything into that decision of not charging them with everything, that maybe they're looking to make a deal with him? If now that he's been Mirandized, he'd be willing to give up more on some of the other folks who were there that night, other people who were involved in planning this?
I think that's a very distinct possibility. You know, we've seen it before in the past where terror suspects were brought into federal court in New York or Virginia and then wound up cutting deals. The last thing that the United States wants is to have a trial and lose, because that would be extremely embarrassing, not only here at home but on the world stage. If they have all these statements that he gave while he was in custody the last 2 weeks and they are not able to use those because they were pre-Miranda, for example, and they don't have a lot of other independent evidence to convict him, I think the last thing that they want to do is risk a potential acquittal.
As you're looking at this case going forward, do you see it more playing out in federal court or not?
Yes, it will play out in federal court. That's where it is now, and it's not going anywhere else. He's not going to be removed and go down to Gitmo or anywhere else, and he's not going to be simply released. It's going to work its way through the federal court system just like anybody else. Of course, we know this isn't just anybody else, because anytime you take a Navy captain and turn them into a prison guard.
We'll, sure, that's for sure. We'll see how it plays out, turn up. Thanks for your insight. That does it for me.